Hi there, everybody. Welcome back to Roll with Advantage and D10, the show where I take your suggestions, I put them on a roll table, I roll a D10, and then I talk about that topic, whatever the roll is, in 10 minutes or less. If you'd like to see your topic on the list, comment below with that topic or join our Discord server and add it there. But with that, let's go ahead and roll the dice and see what we're going to talk about. Well, that's just not very nice, but okay. All right, here are our topics. So let's go ahead and come over here and that is going to be 7. How to instill a sense of fear or paranoia in your players without making them feel powerless. Okay, no more wide Joe. Let's go. There we go. Back to normal. Awesome. So that's the topic. How to instill a sense of fear or paranoia in your players without making them feel powerless. I'm going to break this down into 3 parts because there are 3 different types of fear or 3 different types of emotions you try to evoke when you are driving a horrific moment. And I'm going to give you a tip on each one of them with some small little stuff sprinkled in at the end. First things first, fear, the anticipation of dread. Imagine the creeping unease of a forest shrouded in mist, or the oppressive silence of a villain's lair, the meat muncher, or I don't know your villain, right? It's somebody. This area is where fear takes root. It's the unknown, it's the unseen. The key to generating fear, music and suspense. Brother, at your goddamn mind, if you think that you can evoke fear properly without music. A dissonant string track can transform an ordinary description of a setting into this nail-biting experience. It's about building anticipation. Think of it like you're doing this to generate fear tokens, and fear tokens can be exchanged for different effects later on. This is often where horror movies, they miss the mark. They try and immediately go for the big bang, they kill somebody, blood splatters everywhere, somebody saws off their leg, you know? Horror movies mess up in that way, especially a lot of modern ones. In your games, you are gonna wanna master fear foreplay, okay? All right, that's what you're looking to do, all right? It takes time. There is a bit of a buildup that's required to get the effect that you want. So the key is patience, allowing them to sit in that unease of the unknown and the unseen, layering that dissonant music track on top of it, and just forcing them to sit in it and wonder what's going to happen. Part 2, terror, the shock of now. Terror strikes in the moment. It's a jolt of adrenaline as danger unfolds. It's where the stakes feel personal, but we want to make sure we're not rendering the players powerless. So the way we do this, we evoke terror after we've had fear build up for a while. We've got a lot of fear tokens. We can then redeem that for terror. What we do is instead of making the players feel powerless, is we put an NPC in danger, right? Because it's hard to evoke terror in a player character without robbing them of that power. And staying in line with the prompt, we want to make sure we don't do that. So put an NPC they care about in jeopardy. It's one thing to face the danger themselves, but it's another to see a loved one at the mercy of evil. The powerlessness of the NPC, it contrasts with the agency of your players. It creates a potent mix of dread and determination. They're not just fighting for survival, they're fighting for a cause, for someone they can't bear to lose. This causes so much terror in them as they fight tooth and nail to get what they need. Part 3, horror, the echoes of terror. Horror lingers like a shadow. It's the sickening aftermath of terror. It's a revulsion, this revelation of what's just transpired. In order to weave horror into your narrative properly, you have to revisit the cycles of fear, terror, and then horror again. Letting it build up like a crescendo is what you want to do over the course of your session. Let's say they don't save the NPC. Oh God. Then they have to sit in that feeling. They don't save the NPC, the villain gets away. The horror that fills them in that moment as they hold the corpse of their loved one, unable to save them and unable to heal them now. It sucks, it hurts. They're horrified with what just happened and what this mangled corpse in front of them is. They have to continue searching for this villain. So then we go back to fear, right? We go back to building suspense and causing them to be afraid. Then we do another terror, right? Something else happens, and then boom, the aftermath, we have horror again. Having this happen 3 or 4 times over a session really builds up this sense of internal dread in the players. And that's what you want. You want them to feel exhausted and afraid. That's what we're going for after all, right? 2 more things I have to say. 1, a word of caution, the power in powerlessness. I know that the prompt was without making your players feel powerless, but there are ways that you can do that without robbing them of their agency. 2 ways. Way 1 is at the beginning of an arc to set the tone, at the beginning of a session to set the tone, you take that power away from them. There's something strange that happens. I mean, recently it could be something like an eclipse, right? Or it could be a full moon. Something in this new area due to a curse or some type of powerful monster or evil wizard causes them to lose their powers at a very specific time. And they know that in 2 weeks there's going to be this event again. So they have 2 weeks in order to make sure that they handle the situation before it happens again, because they'll lose their powers. That is a good use of that. Thing is, caveat always, before you do something like that, let the players know that it's going to happen. Maybe a few sessions in advance, tell them, hey, just so you guys know, something's going to come up in a few sessions where you might lose the ability to use your spells and class features. I promise you'll have them back, but I just kind of want you to roll with me, okay? And I don't want you to know when it's going to happen, just that it's going to happen. For 90% of players, that's enough. They're like, okay, cool, sounds good, I'll just roll with it. Some players might be against that, and if one player at your table is uncomfortable with that, well, then you probably shouldn't do it. But it's still a really powerful tool in generating fear and anxiety at your table. Finally, here's the last tip I'll give for you. Your greatest ally in evoking fear is atmosphere. Small details can have a really, really, really big effect, right? Maybe you message one player or tell them, hey, you get this fleeting sensation of being watched. Or ask a player to roll a d20. It doesn't need to go anywhere. Just say, hey, can you roll a d20 for me? Hey, roll a d4 for me real quick. It'll cause fear, anxiety. Why? What's going on? What's happening? And maybe have the number come up later in the session just for funsies. But, you know, have them roll that die, it causes fear in players. Maybe you have an NPC that suddenly just stops talking mid-sentence, right? It can cause fear and anxiety within the player. These moments, they might seem trivial, but when they start to layer on top of each other one after another, they start to have a big impact. Fear and terror and horror isn't about big moments. It's about small incremental steps that build up to that overwhelming heavy burden of fear, anxiety, horror, and terror. So with that, thanks for watching, everybody. I hope that these tips were helpful. Fear is a very powerful tool at your table, but especially in something like D&D, it's hard to achieve because the players are so powerful. So use NPCs, use music, use atmosphere, and sometimes it's okay to take the power away from your players as long as you talk about it beforehand. Thanks for watching this episode of D10. I hope you enjoyed. Like I said, be sure to comment below if you have things that you want me to add to the list. Love to talk about those, and we will see you next time.